Hello, and welcome to the Gnostic correspondence study of revolutionary psychology. By the Gnostic master Samael Onvior. This is a series of talks that will include reflections, exercises, and practices to help aid and deepen your understanding of this great work. Chapter 2: The Marvelous Ladder.
So the second chapter is called The Marvelous Ladder, which of course is a continuation of the first chapter, this marvelous ladder. And the beginning quote I'll include, and also as a reflection that we can take away, is we must long for a real change. This is truly the heart of this chapter. We must long for a real change. And again, to feel that longing, that yearning, that need that we have inside for a revolution of our consciousness, for a revolution of our psychology, for a revolution of our interior, especially if we're seeking a revolution on the outside. And he says that on this marvelous ladder, on the vertical, the concept of time does not apply. On the rungs of that ladder, we can only find levels of being. So again, that vertical line of the being that should overcross the horizontal line of our life, which is also important because again, it's the means, it's the way that we have for the being to, or the spirit to manifest in us, is through us in our life. So our purpose is not fulfilled. We try to take away life, then that purpose doesn't get to be fulfilled in being here. And this is what we call the fourth way. And there are fourth way teachings, but it is to be in life but not completely consumed by life. So not having the line of life be overshadowing the vertical line of the being, because what really determines our life is our being, and is our level of being, and is our cultivation of the values and the virtues of the being, is going to determine our happiness and freedom, really our freedom within life. If we do not pay attention to the level of being, we will more and more decrease our level of freedom in life. Because freedom is liberation, and liberation is the being. And we gain that real freedom. People think freedom is gained through having more things, having more status, having more money. That's not freedom, right? In our caged communities, afraid of losing what we have, afraid of people taking what we have, always comparing, envying. This is not freedom. This is not a state of internal freedom. Through having more, through investing entirely on the exterior, does not bring us a state of internal freedom. We're not liberated in that way. So real freedom comes from devoting to the line of the being, but then that gets expressed in life. It gets expressed in life. So he also goes on to say it's clear and anyone can comprehend that the two lines, horizontal and vertical, intersect from moment to moment in our psychological interior and form a cross. From moment to moment. So that means every single moment is this intersecting of the being and life. And that should invite us to be very aware of that right now. And to be out of the moment in any moment is to miss that intersection, is to miss what life itself really is. And yes, sometimes we remember, sometimes we think, sometimes we plan. But more and more, we want that to be on purpose. And to be either thinking, planning, remembering on purpose, or letting go of all that and being aware and simply present to receive something new. Because if we're always projecting, if we're always remembering, always planning, always preoccupied, then nothing new will come to us. And through time, we see that with people who are never in the moment, tend to become more and more, I mean, the words used are crusty, for instance, just more fixed, more cemented, more and more the same, but at a denser and more complicated level. And to be new, to continuously renew ourselves, requires this capacity to let go of all that and be in the moment often. Be in the moment. He says that the personality develops and unfolds on that horizontal line of life. It is born and dies with its linear time. It is mortal. There is no tomorrow for the personality of the deceased. The personality is not the being. And so this gets into a really important teaching that most of us know about of what is the personality. And that is a vehicle that can be utilized by the essence and the consciousness or by the ego. That is determined by our level of awareness and what we're living for. Going back to those earlier questions, what are we living for? If we are living to fulfill egotistical desires, then our personality will be for that. If we are living to have the spirit manifest through us, then our personality will be more and more through that. But we need to work for that to happen, because that's not the way we were generally taught to be. That's not the way that our education systems and families, etc., necessarily taught us how to do that. Right? There's usually this hyper cultivation of a personality that pleases those around us. So a reactive, imitative personality. And the personality, as Master Samael also has said, is what we have borrowed. It's what we've acquired along the way. And it has its use, it has its place. We need to be able to interact with each other. But to really, that answer of what are we living for is shown through our very personality. How do we show up? What do we think about? And the personality thrives on primarily envy, jealousy, vanity, and preoccupations. The false personality, that is. The ego-driven or false personality primarily thrives on envy, jealousy, vanity, and preoccupations about all those other ones, right? I'm constantly preoccupied. If I'm very envious and jealous and guarded, possessive and vain, always caring what others think, because that false personality was built up generally, usually on what other people think. Will they love me? Will they take care of me? Asks the 5-year-old to his or herself. How can I make sure? If that's what the contract is between me and my parents, that I will feel loved if I perform well, then my personality is going to be written into that contract as such. And that's the deal for most of us, that's the world that we tend to live in, right? Without people really living with the consciousness at the forefront. They're not internally liberated, so they don't know how to let me be internally liberated or the child be internally liberated. Unfortunately, we don't live in a free world, generally speaking, because we don't have free consciousness. We don't have real freedom inside. And so we get to this point where we want to look at that, and we're kind of looking back at our own selves and going, wow, what am I living for? Not just what do I want to be living for, what do I think is the right thing to do, but looking back at my day, what did I think about today? What were my preoccupations? In what ways did I did I invest in caring so much about what others think? Where was my fear? And what did it do with me? Right? To really look and go, what actually did I live for today in terms of energy, thoughts, feelings, actions? What am I living for? And to have this Dharma and Sangha to help us to transition more and more into living for the spirit or the being or the consciousness. We need that help, and to take my work with me wherever I go. And that's what the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are meant to support, is to have a work with strength that we can take wherever we go. So this restlessness and this yearning of the consciousness or conscience will lead us to this vertical or later. And if you're here, you feel that, right? So might as well dive into that vertical line. Yeah. And that's what we're intending to do with these weeks, with this series. But we need a didactic, we need a teaching to help us to do that. And there are certain qualities of the vertical path that's good to be aware of. First of all, self-remembering, or remembering the true self, remembering I am an essence. I know who I am inside, and I often stop to really feel that and know that experientially, right? To know who I am, to remember my true self, to not forget myself. Because when I've forgotten that, then I've departed the center. I'm disoriented because I'm no longer in touch with my point of orientation, which is the consciousness and the essence and what I really am, and therefore what I'm really here for. So then I'm the log on the ocean waves, tossed about. And this is not thinking, but awareness, the experience of awareness of what I am. So with myself, I mean, do I need to constantly think all the time about what technically it means to be a woman? Or can I just be a woman? And be aware of that, be aware of my feminine nature, be aware of the tone of my voice, be aware of those natural feminine qualities that I have as a woman, but I'm not constructing it with my mind constantly, like in order to be a woman, I must X, Y, and Z. It's not a mental exercise, self-remembering or awareness. It's just awareness. It's being in the free flow of life because we're aware. And when we're in that state of awareness, we don't need to think. We really don't need a bunch of thoughts. Thoughts have their place, but we don't need so much of it. We don't need nearly so much of it. So the second quality of that vertical path is psychological self-observation. So that state of beingness and awareness, pure awareness, and self-remembering, remembering my true self, and then witnessing myself, evoking the observer, the witness, the consciousness, and the observed. That which may be distracting me, that which may be taking me off the point, that which is in darkness. To observe that frustration or that vanity and preoccupation and jealousy and envy that's wanting to push into my personality right now. So the observed and the observer, self-observation. So that's another, we could say, quality or principle of that vertical path, that self-observation is active. And then thirdly, what we've already mentioned as what is called the logical confrontation and evident self-reflection of the being, or contrasting between the finite and the infinite. This evident self-reflection of the being. So the being actually operating through me to contrast, to notice what is finite and what is infinite, what is temporal, like a temporal psychological state, a fixation in a certain thought or point or issue, a certain concentrated mood in a moment that feels like it's always this way, or I never, or you never, or we always, right? Those sorts of finite concentrated points. It's very finite, it's temporal. it comes and it goes. This too will pass. So that temporal psychological state, or an infinite state of presence, and to notice the difference, to begin to experientially really feel and notice finite and infinite as I live, as I think, as I feel, so that I become more and more magnetized towards a more open, infinite state. And then fourthly, this quality of the vertical path is the Gnostic esoteric wisdom, right? Is this teaching itself, is the Dharma, the guidance that we need. So those are characteristics or qualities of a vertical path. Self-remembering, self-observation, this self-reflection of the being, or that self-remembering and self-observation in action and what it produces. And then the teaching itself, the guidance, the didactic that we need, that we reference, that we refer to. Yeah. So the reflection that I think is great to take away from this chapter is that which we began with. We must long for a real change. Longing for a real change and letting ourselves to really feel that need that we have for that real change inside.
Okay, let's now prepare for a brief meditation practice.
Okay, let us find ourselves in a comfortable seat, comfortable posture, comfortable enough to be relaxed, but not too comfortable that we lose our attention, our awareness. Let's inhale, imagining that we're moving upwards through the spine, expanding. Pause, relax, exhale, feeling the weight of your body sinking down. Pause, relax, continue. Continue breathing and feeling yourself expanding and getting lighter upon the inhalation. Pausing, relaxing, and feeling the weight of your body, warm, comfortable, sinking down upon the exhale. Continue. As we continue expanding on the inhale, relaxing, let us find a point in the middle, a point that stays consistent in our heart, that all the energy and the breath passes upwards through and downwards out, with our attention in this central point in our heart of hearts. And in this, let us feel deeply the transformative power of this breathing into a sense of longing for change. Longing to be different. Longing, yearning. Let this feeling expand. And now, without very much mental effort, let us retrospect, review the day, not thinking about what happened, but just moving from event, circumstance to event. Through the day, don't get caught up in details, but let us move with this sense of feeling the longing for change, the longing to be different. See ourselves in the morning, preparing our day, traveling to where we needed to be, interacting with people, eating, sitting, walking. But all holding this sense of longing to be different, longing for change. But notice the resistance to change, or the reaction to be the same. The repetition of the way we feel in our different conversations, our different interactions. Don't let this become a feeling of shame or guilt or frustration. Just notice it. Don't let it become thoughts about how I should have been different. Just feel the contrast between the expansive state of longing to change and the real practical observation of the resistance to change. Don't try to change, but feel the contrast between the longing and the reacting. And let this, in this moment, just be a noticing, a feeling, of which we return back to the presence of the longing. As we conclude our day, resolve to end our day with this feeling, with this elevated feeling of the being, level of being in a superior state. This concludes our practice. Our next chapter will be psychological rebellion. So our exercise for the week is with the question, the longing for real change, trying to hold that sense of presence and uplifted emotional state, and notice through our events, circumstances throughout the day, the resistance to change, the resistance to being different, the reaction to same responses to life, to people, and conclude each day with a short retrospection like we did, looking back at the events of the day, not being caught up in details, but more the feeling of the contrast between this longing to be new, to be different, and the reaction to be the same, respond the same, speak the same, move the same. And at each point we try to be in that state of longing to be different and try to act from that state. And notice the contrast.